Welcome back to me shooting 2 videos in a row and wearing the exact same thing for more than one video. Hi guys, Skillfully Awful here and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video I'm going to be talking about Scottish conventions. Now, sirs, Scottish conventions, if you're an American, they're gonna look shit. If you want something that looks like an American convention, Scotland is not the place. But, however, that is not saying the conventions we have here are horrible. The conventions we have here are pretty good. They're just nothing compared to American cons. But, if you don't like the idea of American cons and you think they're too big, too busy, then isn't Scotland the place for you? So, we're gonna start talking about some of the conventions we have in Scotland, some of the best conventions and the worst conventions. So, if you're not someone that goes to conventions very often but you would like to go, I would suggest going to either MCM Scotland or going to Decon or even Rikon. Now, these 3 cons I feel like are the best because MCM Scotland is one of the biggest conventions that we have and there's just a lot to do and it's a lot of fun and it's just... and we have actors that go, voice actors, so who knows, your favourite actor might go. You never know. But it's a very big convention. It's next to the ECC Hydro and it's just all around a good time. But it is one of the biggest and busiest conventions that we have in Scotland. The other one is Decon. Now Decon takes place in Dundee and this one is in the university, I believe. And it's quite big, not as big as MCM, but I feel like it's one of the second biggest conventions. By far my favourite convention just because of where it is, how everything's set out, just I always seem to meet really nice people there. It's lovely. Decon is very busy and some of the venues are pretty small, so it does get a little bit tight when you're walking about, but besides from that it's a really good convention and I would extremely encourage you to go, unless it's too far, because I know if you live in Glasgow, Dundee is insanely far away, but if there's any way you could make it, I would go. Decon is 1 day only. It also gets really warm inside of the convention area in Decon. Usually you see people sitting at stalls with fans and stuff, but that's mainly because the air conditioning isn't on. So MCM does however have air conditioning and the outside part for MCM and Decon are massive and a lot of people hang outside after they've done looking about. So you can, because there's like a big area outside you can sit at, so if it gets too warm inside but you don't want to leave the convention completely, you can sit outside and you will still be able to like sit and talk to people that are there and all of that jazz. However, I don't think Decon has any actors or anything that go, so that's the only downside I can think of. Rikon is a sort of small convention that takes place in Glasgow, just like across from Decon bus station. This is at like the John Lewis Centre or something like that. It's on Buchanan Street anyway. This one however doesn't kind of have an outside area. There is, but it's out on the street, so you can't really go there and just spend your time like you can in Decon and MCM. The convention is relatively small. There is 2 rooms where they sell stuff. One's usually downstairs and one usually upstairs. There's a lot of room in the convention to sit. There's always a lot of seats. There's a cafe. You're good, like there's a lot of places to go. Keep in mind though, there will be people walking about, just like MCM and Decon. There's people walking about because since Decon is in a university, there's people from university walking about. MCM, there's people walking about because it's in a big convention centre which has like other stuff going on while MCM's there. Rikon will have people walking about as well. So I say they're the 3 best conventions. MCM might be a little bit harder to get to if you don't know your way around Glasgow. It's the SSC Hydro, it's where that's based. There is buses you can get from like Buchanan Street and stuff there and all of that kind of stuff. To get to Decon, you can't really get a bus, so you might kind of have to navigate your way there, but it's not that far from where Primark and all of that stuff is, so it's quite central. Rikon is literally across the road from the bus station, so you can't really get lost. So I would say those are the best 3 conventions. The worst conventions, now worst conventions are only in my opinion, so Only my opinion. I would say the worst convention we have is Capital Sci-Fi, only because I myself have had very, very bad experiences with being there. This one's in Edinburgh. It's the last 2 times I have been, the staff have been absolutely horrible to us. They're very strict and quite horrible, so I don't know, they might have increased better staff, but in my opinion, I think the convention is just too small. The staff are just quite rude. That convention, however, is 3 days and they do have actors, so don't take it from me and completely avoid Capital Sci-Fi. Like, it is a good convention overall, but it's just some experiences I've had there, leaves it in kind of like the bottom conventions. Another one would be Film and Comic Con, mainly because there's just not a lot of cosplayers and it's in a big shopping centre that's quite far from Glasgow. Like, you'd have to get another bus, like it's not walking distance, and a taxi might be expensive from the bus station, and it's kind of not worth the extra travel to get there. There's just not a lot of cosplayers, it's mainly kids. I think some people that are just up in the town will just come and see what it is. It is centred in a really good place since it's in a town centre. There is like stores, shops, there's a lot of food places, so it is kind of good. But if you're someone who can't really get a car or someone to drive you there, the buses are quite complicated and I don't think it's worth the extra travel. Play Expo is another one I don't like too much, but it is very good if you're really into like arcade video games and stuff, because they do have like a bunch of arcade games centered about. Maybe not that great if you're there for a Comic-Con, but if you're maybe there for the video games, it is totally worth your time. That is in the same place as Film and Comic-Con, but I think Play Expo is a lot better because there's games you can play, although the lines for the games are pretty long, but when you start to play the games it's worth it. Glasgow Comic Con, which is in the exact same place that Rikon is, just at another time of the year. I think that's mainly July time. We also have HorrorCon, which I think is quite good and not a lot of people go, so if you kind of want like a quiet convention, I would go to either Edinburgh Comic Con or Edinburgh HorrorCon. Maybe sometimes even Glasgow Comic Con can be quite small, but that's kind of in the same place Rikon is, so a lot of people go to that. If you're looking for a more quiet convention, I would either go to a local one, so like if somewhere you live, like for example I'm in Glenoffice and Glenoffice held a Comic Con, so like if your town holds a Comic Con, they'll be really quiet and it will be quite tame if you don't want to be near a lot of people. Edinburgh Comic Con is quite busy, but it's not as busy as other ones, and HorrorCon obviously isn't busy because not many people are into horror, but of course there's going to be people dressed up as like scary things, so if that's not your forte then that won't be for you. Capital Sci-Fi, like I said, it's busy, but maybe over the years they've had enough complaint about the staff there, so maybe they've improved it. Some of the staff are absolutely lovely, but some of them however are not, usually the ones at the doors and stuff. Another great way if you want to just make friends is to go to cosplay meetups. Sometimes if you just go on Facebook or Instagram or something, or maybe like following some cosplayers that are like Scottish. A lot of Scottish cosplayers will tag Scottish cosplayers, so just go on Instagram and like type in Scottish cosplayers, follow them, maybe DM them. Sometimes they'll post on their stories if they're going to like meetups or they're making a meetup. You can go there and make friends. Facebook is usually a good place to search for cosplay meetups. It's just kind of like a lot of people will get together and go somewhere and cosplay and just have a great old time. They're really good and I would suggest you go if you've never been to one. Another one is if you live near Glasgow. There's a place called Tokyo Toys, and sometimes they'll do like kind of parties and stuff, and they'll have like a bunch of people coming and cosplay, so that's really good. If you're in conventions in Glasgow, I would suggest going to Tokyo Toys because they're really lovely with cosplayers, and if you're into anime and stuff, there's tons of anime stuff in there and it's great. I'm sure there's a bunch of other Comic Cons I'll mention that I'll just kind of, maybe I forgot to mention because there's a lot. From personal experience, I would maybe not go to every convention there is. I think there's about at least 15 conventions that happen a year, and from my personal experience I would maybe say don't go to everyone. Maybe on like your first year maybe go to everyone, but I've been cosplaying for about 4 years now, and I've been going to every convention every single year that's in Scotland, and it gets a bit repetitive, so maybe just kind of pick your favourites and only go to there. Unless, I mean, you might want to go to every convention, it's up to you completely, but in my opinion, I think for the first 3 or 4 years I went to every single convention, and next year I think I'm going to lower it down to like maybe just Decon, MCM, Rikon and all of that kind of stuff. Maybe not go to like the Film and Comic Con Play Expo, just kind of like tone it down a little bit. But aside from that, I think that's all I have for today's video. If there's anything else I've forgotten, I will make sure to put it somewhere. If you have any questions about Scottish conventions and what they're like, please let me know and I will list them down below. Comment down below any questions and I will do my best to answer them. Nobody usually comments on my videos, so most likely if you comment I will be there straight away to answer your lovely question. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for today's video, and I'm sorry I'm kind of like over here, but I'm leaning against the wall. That's all for today's video. Hope you enjoyed. Surely hope I've mentioned everything. If not, obviously questions. Like the video if you found it helpful, dislike the video if you didn't find it helpful, and I will try and make a better one of these at some point. See you all in the next video. Bye!